Lucifer actually translates the original translations, bringer of light.
No way.
Yeah.
What? Say it again.
Lucifer translates to bringer of light, or light bearer, light wielder.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That is insane.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know that.
Oh my God. I just learned something so new. What a misconception, right? The whole idea of like Lucifer.
Oh yeah. I mean, that goes deep.
Absolutely it does. Hey everyone, I'm your host Lanice and welcome to Soulfull. This is a space that'll help you unfold the tools within you to align with your highest self through shared experience. Because at the end of this journey, unique to oneself, we are all interconnected. We are one. Do you know why I invited you here? I mean, I know that you don't know exactly, actually.
Are you trying to invite me to a cult?
Actually, yeah, that's pretty interesting. I have something to share on some cool stuff and this whole belief system. But I actually saw you in a dream.
Whoa.
I saw you in a dream back in December when my first love, Joey, had first passed.
Oh, whoa.
And I was triggered and like the chaos and the crisis happened. For a long time, if I was dreaming, it was of him. And I had like one crazy dream that I already spoke on in my last episode. But there was a very short dream that I had that you happened to be in. I want to say it felt like 30 seconds. It was super quick.
Interesting.
But I'll explain it to you because it means a lot to me now. So I was at my friend's house sleeping in my dream, and I woke up in the morning and I was feeling exactly how I felt in like real life, you know, just like
at the time.
Dark, dim. I didn't feel okay. Like, you know, someone who's really close to me that I hadn't connected with or talked to in forever passed. So I was really, really depressed, really sad. And so in my dream, I woke up feeling this way. And I heard somebody singing outside. And there were like birds and stuff like chirping and stuff. And it was sunny outside, like my window, like the sun was like
So it was like dark inside and
it was dark in my room. Yeah, in the room.
That's interesting.
But outside there was like birds chirping and someone was singing and like happy. I just heard like happy voice and the sun was beaming in. So I was like, what is that? Like, who could be this happy? I literally thinking, who could be this happy? So I got up and I went to the window and there was like an RV, because there's always an RV outside this window in real life. Like there's always an RV out there. So like I was looking at
that.
You know, I was like, what the hell? So I'm like looking at this RV because it was coming from there. I'm like, who is that? And it was you. And can you guess how I knew it was you?
How?
Your hair.
Oh.
I am not kidding.
Was my hair like sticking out the window or like
You were actually sitting on top of the RV.
Oh, wow.
With a guitar singing. Nice. You were like so happy and you were by yourself. And I was like, I woke up and I was like, was that one guy that I follow on Instagram that I went to high school with? Literally.
Yeah.
I was
That's wild.
Yeah, I was like, what the actual hell? And I didn't think much of it past that, you know. I didn't think about really anything except, you know, just darkness.
Yeah.
So now that I'm here, knowing what happened to me and the awakening and all that, it means to me almost as if like I had angels working through you or using your identity to communicate to me that there is happiness on the other side of what is happening to me. Because as soon as I woke up, I was like, it's that one guy. So I went on your Instagram, checked out your stories, and I vibed with him. I'm like, what is this like language? What are these things that he's sharing, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's an account right off the top of my head, Third Eye Kingdom, that
Oh yeah. I
you're
know.
always sharing. And I think that was probably one of the first posts where I was like, that makes sense. And I've never heard anything like this.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously we're here right now, and I couldn't be more grateful to have you here. After
I appreciate
having
that.
Right? After
Yeah.
having this dream, and, you know.
That's cool. Thanks for not telling me this beforehand, because genuinely I'm intrigued by this, because I have really interesting, strange dreams a lot of the times, and kind of I don't know if you call it predictive, but like dreams where like people dream premonitions. So that runs in my family. I don't necessarily have those, but I've had other family members who have had those, and it's really crazy like how that happens. But for me, I have weird dreams where I'm like a space detective on an alien planet trying to like solve some kind of crazy crime, you know? Or like I've literally gone through black holes and traveled in different timelines of my own personal life now.
Whoa.
Yeah, and but those dreams, like, I never know what to think, and I only remember them if I like write them down or like meditate on them right when I wake up and I don't have any distractions. But
Absolutely.
dreams are really interesting because there's something in your subconscious there that points that, and I don't know if it was necessarily me in your dream, but something was channeling itself through, I guess, the image of me in some sort of way that like got through to you in a way you maybe needed. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. I would say definitely needed it at that time.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I didn't want to wake up in the morning, you know?
I can understand that feeling. I've had that feeling throughout my life at different points. So I guess I would say personally, I've known darkness in a lot of ways where, like, you know, somebody on the outside just meeting me might not necessarily see that, because I've had to channel and transpose that darkness into an expression of, the best I can, light, you know, because I think transposing, transmuting, transfusing, whatever you want to call it, changing energy is like one of the greatest gifts we have as conscious beings on this planet.
Absolutely.
You know?
And you were talking to me about your awakening being way back in 2012.
Oh, yeah.
Because you kind of have to go through that to even like understand this language and like see those things to make those changes for yourself.
Right.
That's like pretty young.
Yeah, I was about 20, you know, and I would say like everybody's different and there's no like right age, and not everybody's necessarily going to follow through with it or accept it or fully even agree with that. Yeah, acknowledge it. Yeah. So for different people, it's different times. But for me, it was interesting because I grew up in religious families, and like, so my grandparents were Catholic. They're still, well, my grandma's still Catholic. She's still around. She's 85.
Wow.
Yeah,
Still
she's
going strong.
just had her birthday.
Happy birthday, Grandma.
Nana. Yeah.
Nana.
But anyway, so I grew up with them for a couple years of my life because I had gone through different like homes and stuff growing up. And so I was Catholic, and then I became, I guess you would call it, an Orthodox Christian.
Okay.
And so I was very devout. I went to church every week. I read the Bible probably 3 or 4 times all the way through.
Wow.
And I still remember a lot of it. I still even quote some of it sometimes, just because certain parts do make sense to me in my
messages.
Yeah, it's a teaching, you know.
Absolutely. I agree.
And so there was a point where like I was just feeling somewhat disconnected from everything around me in the church. And I'm not criticizing the church, because there are people who genuinely, it does help improve their life and make them feel a part of something and give them hope in something.
It works for them.
Yeah. There was a point it just stopped working for me because I started feeling, you know, disconnected from the people around me. And, you know, like whether it was in the church band where like I always felt like they turned my guitar down because I was always a little too free with it and wanted to do a little more just to get people pumped up and have a good time, you know? Either that or just sometimes, like I was never like picked for certain things, and like it just got to a point where I just felt like I didn't really belong to that group anymore.
Yeah, you felt like the outsider. You started to.
Yeah.
What I'm getting out of this is you were starting to expand your thought.
Yeah.
And even expressing that physically through your music, and boxed mindsets don't like that. And I'm not disrespecting any religion again, because I believe that for some people in their lifetime, that's what works for them, and that's their path, that's their journey. It's supposed to be that way. But there are so many others out there that I really think have had an awakening or are going to, and this sort of language and communication is what's going to help. Just spread that and help people realize that, like, this is not as crazy or weird as people make it out to be.
Right. That's just being a human, because we oftentimes, in order to decide whether something is a threat or not, or will change our lives in an uncomfortable way, we oftentimes will deny its existence or fight its existence. I guess you could call that cognitive dissonance, which basically, like, you could present somebody with a truth that they're not willing to accept, and so they will go back to their core belief and defend their core belief no matter what, because it's, like when you get older, that's just something you believe your whole life, so it's harder for older people to go through that nowadays.
Absolutely.
So it's different for everybody.
And like the brain's already like embedded and developed with everything that it's come to know. So anything outside of that is just bizarre.
Yeah,
my
exactly.
grandparents think I'm crazy. For real.
I'm kind of a black sheep in my family too.
Me too. Yes.
I love them all to death, but a lot of them are still very Christian, and they honestly, I see it makes them happy and gives them purpose, and that's beautiful,
Absolutely, it is.
Yeah.
And that works for them, and this works for us, right?
Right. So to continue my story, so in like 2012, I watched a documentary, just because I was interested, and it just popped up. It's called Zeitgeist. Which at the time I was like, whoa, this is trippy, it was going through the birth of Jesus and the stars and all these things in ancient Egypt. And then it went into money, and then it went into 9/11. And I had been researching 9/11 since I was like 14 or 15. Just, I don't know what got me started on it, but then I was like, maybe I should question the government,
So that came natural for you.
That came natural for me.
Hell
just, I mean, when it comes to authority, I oftentimes question it, because, like, what gives you power over me?
Absolutely. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Totally.
So when I watched this, I, at the time, was like, oh my gosh, like, maybe, and this was on Easter, the Friday before Easter, so Good Friday. Mm-hmm. And it was 2012, and I remember watching this and, like, questioning everything, and then just being like, I went to church on that Sunday, on Easter Sunday, and I closed my eyes while listening to the pastor, and he was just talking about money and, like, all their budget and, like, all this stuff. And I was like, and donations, and it just blew my mind. I'm like, this is, like, he did spend time on Jesus and stuff and his, the resurrection. But then just for him to turn the conversation into money, like, closing my eyes and not seeing his charismatic, like, personality that everybody's just all about, because they're all in the church, and if you go to that church, you probably like the pastor.
Right.
So I just was like, this is not for me. The teachings have truth in them. Mm-hmm. It's been buried over thousands of years through translations and control of different governments. Like the Roman, they had like a Roman council in, like, I think the 300s, which took certain books out of the Bible, and it's because they didn't align, or they contradicted other books in the Bible. So you can find that now. It's called the Apocrypha, and it's out there. You can find it. And it has all these books that are taken out, and there's crazy stories about dragons and, like, wizards, crazy stuff.
What's crazy to me, though, is, like, okay, back when, like, these books were being written, people thought that those people writing in their books were crazy. Like, my perception of anyone, any prophet who is in the Bible writing these books, are just literally just making sense of the universe and God and source.
Philosophy
and
almost, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's so many different religions now, and what's sad to me about it is that they can't see the division that it causes.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily the people who are going there, although a lot of them can be influenced to do the bidding of other people who are influencing them, right?
True.
But there are definitely people who have like a hierarchy above and do make decisions and get certain things done that they want done. And I'm not in agreement with that, because there's a lot, like if you take the Vatican, for example, there's miles of ancient documents under it. Miles. And that's not even a conspiracy. And you can only request one document once every, I think it's once a year or once every couple years. And even if you request the wrong one, the one that you didn't want, that's your one. But you have to be a certain person in authority, I think, within the church to even do that.
How controlling is that?
Right?
Oh my
There's
God.
so much knowledge and stuff that they want hidden. And I'm not saying they as in there's like one group controlling everything. I'm saying they as in like the people that are a part of this specific group, you know? So I don't know. With my awakening, I remember coming home and my parents were watching like the Bible on TV is like a story, and it was like played out like Noah and all the different things and Jesus. And I just remember my mom looking at me and being like, "Isn't this beautiful?" And I understood why she asked that, and I felt for her, but I didn't feel it for me anymore. And that's when I realized I'm just not with that. And even though later on I found out Zeitgeist had a lot of non-factual information in it that was later fact-checked, and they were like, this is actually debunked, this is debunked, that's debunked. I realized that was used more as a tool to get people to question things. And they were like, okay, you're spoon-fed information every day, constantly, overloaded, oversensitized, desensitized, I should say. And here, I'm going to give you a bunch of information, and you can choose to believe it or not.
Right.
But the real idea is behind that, the questioning. And
are you going to dig deeper?
Yeah.
Or are you just going to keep going?
Are you going to be just like everyone else, you know?
Yeah, are you just going to fall in line?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. I love that.
Yeah. So what about you? Talk about you a little bit. I'm over here talking the whole way.
Oh my goodness. What is there to say about me?
What was your awakening?
What was my awakening?
Yeah, what caused that?
Well, it was definitely, I mean, the trigger of it all was losing Joseph. However, there's so many, like when you look back in hindsight, there's so many experiences that lead up to that moment, correct?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've had my experience too with church, because my family also is very Christian and Catholic, and that's cool, you know, that's them. But I didn't have the best experiences there. You know, I would always go to the like teen classes or whatever, and I can't say that everybody was warm and welcoming. And, you know, this was a place where my mom would tell me like, oh, like these people are good. And it's like, I don't feel that. I mean, we're kids, you know, we're kids at the time. I can't.
You're still a kid, whether you're in church or not.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
Kids
like
still do things that kids do.
Exactly. Yeah. Like they all get cliquey and stuff, but it's just like, I feel like I've always been kind of sensitive to energy, whether it's other people's or myself. And I didn't have the awareness of exactly what that was when I was young. So I just didn't get a great taste, you know? I didn't get a great taste of that because, again, it goes back to I felt like I just didn't fit in, you know? Like people would preach their service. And it was cool, like you're saying, like I loved the messages that I was receiving. However, I had so many questions.
Right. Yeah.
And that was frowned upon. Like that was not really acceptable.
Right. If you question the teacher of anything, even in school,
they kind of look at you like you're trouble.
Don't do that.
Yeah, like you're a smart ass.
Just be a cookie cutter, please.
Yeah, it's like, what? Why are we teaching this? You know, why are we telling everybody that they have to be the same and learn
Right.
the same and act the same and believe the same things. I love the idea of freedom of thought, because that's how you explore yourself.
Yeah.
That's how you explore other people. And, you know, you could be like the smartest person on the
Yeah.
planet, but we don't know everything, you know? And like,
Definitely not.
how ignorant to stay in a box and just live your life that way and judge others for thinking, you know, a little bit deeper, a little bit more out there. Like, I mean, we're definitely not the only beings here.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, even organisms, plants, you know, other animals, aliens. I love aliens. I do. Do you believe in aliens?
Yeah. I believe in extra dimensional creatures, whether they are physically on our plane or not.
Right.
You know, it could be energetically as well.
It is. I think it's all energy at the
Well,
end of it all.
At the end of it, yes.
It's all energy. Like when we leave this vessel, is what I call the body. When we leave this, we don't know where we're gonna go next.
Not at
We're
all.
not promised that we're gonna be another person. We can be an alien. We can be.
You could be a rock.
We can be a rock. Literally, I didn't want to say it.
I
I
mean,
didn't want to say it, but
someone's got to be a rock at some point.
Right?
You know, we all probably have been the rock at some point, or going to be, you know.
yeah, yeah.
It's like Charlie Brown, you know.
Exactly.
I got a rock.
Exactly.
He
And
wouldn't have had. Sorry, I'm going off.
it's so true. But yeah, I've questioned a lot of things at a very young age. So, you know, again, respect to everybody who has their belief, you know, but if you have questions, you shouldn't feel guilty for.
You shouldn't deny yourself the curiosity to wonder, because that is a big part of being human. And for people to be shamed for just wondering, like, there's something to say about that, because naturally it's what we've done. That's how we came up with tools. That's how we came up with, you know, agriculture and all these things. And whether aliens influence that or not, I don't really know. Not going to say it is, but it's, you know, like we developed in a way that made us question things, and it brought us to this point. And we're still questioning things. We will never know everything, and that's okay.
Exactly. I think that like once we pass, we like basically are everything. Like we cannot possibly understand or make sense of everything in this, because this body itself is limitation.
Yeah. It's like, think of your internet, right? With broadband. Your brain constantly is like receiving information, but there's only a certain bandwidth on it. So it only is able to receive a certain amount of information at a time. And certain things like psychedelics can open you up a little bit more, but not necessarily enough to where you're going to have full self-awareness of the divine source of creation or whatever it might be. You know?
That's the scary part too,
Yeah.
for some people, and that's, you know, that's when it can become a problem, when you experience that first time and then you're kind of chasing that, you know, and you want answers, and before you know it, you're having bad trips and you're just like falling into the hole because you want something that we're not allowed to have here, you know?
No, you can have a taste, but that's more to lead you to leave a imprint or impact on this world that is the best and highest potential of yourself, because we all have infinite potential, and you know, the younger you are, the more infinite that potential is. But you know, say you and I, we're still at an age where we can change and rewire our brain, rewire our thinking, and that is something that we need to utilize, because once you get stuck in a life of just doing things on repeat or doing things in this like robotic motion, then suddenly 20 years has gone by and you're just like, what did I do? Just work, pay bills, eat, sleep, occasionally drink. What did I do?
Yeah,
you know,
you wonder
like,
why you're not happy. It's like,
you didn't do what you felt you wanted to do because you felt you needed to do these other things.
Yep, and you just put that that wanting, that pleasure, that real pleasure
Yeah.
to the side to kind of make room and even accommodate others, you know? It's just like, my goodness, it's okay to put yourself first. It's okay to like relax. It's okay to, you know, have a little trip here and there. It's like, I feel like we need that.
Yeah.
I feel like we really need more time to just relax. I mean, I feel like I've heard somewhere that like Europe has 4 work days out of the week and 3 days off or something like that. Or like they take a break, like a large break.
I know in
over the
Italy
summer.
they take a nap. They have a mandatory nap. Or it's not mandatory, but it's like they're
Basically.
allotted to
Yeah.
go home, take a nap, and then go about your day, you know? Like, that's
love
great.
that. Yeah, we need more of that here in the U.S.
Yeah.
Most definitely, because they already know, they've already done all the research on naps and how important it is for the body to
yeah.
recharge, et cetera, et cetera. It's like,
After I work a long day, there's times where I'm like, I'm just going to push through it because there's things I want to do or get done or this and that. But there's times where it's like literally I'm just like trying to drive home and I'm getting tired. I'm like, I'm going to go take a nap. And then suddenly 2 hours has gone by. I wake up and I feel great. And I'm just like, thank you, universe, for making me sleep.
oh, yeah, exactly. When you need it, right?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's just with the awakening stuff, it's people are they have keywords that trigger certain thought patterns that either are influenced or they've developed on their own. And so when you say awakening, a lot of people instantly go to what they think the symbol of awakening is, because a lot of people think in symbols and they don't realize that, and
Interesting.
that's what like a subliminal messaging is genius for. Not to say that it's a good thing,
Right.
but to put a thought in someone's head, you don't put like exactly what it is, because then they're consciously going to be aware. You
Right.
put a symbol that represents something, whatever it is, and that creates that connection in your brain, that pattern in your brain to go to that thought. So
Interesting.
with awakening, when you say that, sometimes people shy away and they think instantly like, oh great, like this person's into crystals and they like sage and stuff, which granted I do for my own personal reasons
Right.
and experiences that I'm never going to be like, you need this crystal.
Yeah.
Unless you like crystals, I'm not going to just be like, here's a quartz, you know?
Yeah, it's not needed. I feel like
No.
it helps ground specific energies if that's what you're into.
Yeah.
I had a cousin who asked me, he said, do you believe in crystals? And I said, I literally said, I don't even like the way you asked that. Like, I don't like to say, do you believe in crystals? Because then there's the acknowledgement that, you know, crystals could not have a meaning to it.
Right.
You know, there could be nothing behind, you know, crystals. Like, it's there. It's a matter of, are you going to acknowledge it or not? Is that your
Or
thing?
can you perceive it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's so like the mind is so free. Like you don't have to necessarily be like all like, you know, spiritual to have this awakening. Like I've heard so many different languages that basically translate to the same exact thing as everything that I believe, that I see. It's really an expansion of the mind. You could be a believer in science, you know, as long as you are being open and aware to your behavior and those thought patterns. I
Self-aware.
love that you brought up thought patterns. That's so interesting.
Yeah. I would say, too, it's not necessarily, there's no like one set path. And like you were saying, there's almost like this translation that kind of comes out the same from different people's perspectives and ways they see life. And so like, for example, when my Nana will, you know, start talking about Jesus and things like that, I'm not like, oh, I don't want to hear that. No, I like listen intently and really like try and understand what she's trying to say. And there's something deeper usually in the messages that I actually do resonate with, to where it's like she could say this thing, and to her it might be more literal, or it could be meaning whatever, but the way she says it to me, I take it in, and I actually do agree with it. Like I don't necessarily believe in a God with a beard sitting up there waiting to like send us all to hell.
Right.
But I do believe there is some kind of divine creator, whether it's a living or whatever it is.
Something
I don't know.
Higher than us, definitely.
Something bigger. And my human consciousness cannot contain it in a box that says this is what it is.
Yeah.
Because that's not it. That's dogmatic. And
absolutely.
why would you want to live your life dogmatically?
It's backwards. And I love that, you said that, you're not so much a believer anymore of like Christianity and Catholicism, but like you can listen to those messages, because I feel like on the reverse end, one who is religious doesn't want to hear anything outside of their belief system, when really there can be like a different perspective, to a lesson or something new that you never learned that could help you in your life.
Yeah.
And that's why it's like so important, what I think it's so important to break down those walls. Do you remember breaking down the walls?
In school?
That just popped in my head.
Whoa.
I said breaking down the walls. I'm like, wow.
That does like trigger some weird thought in the back of my head of like, oh, whoa, that was like years ago.
Popped up. Yeah, that's wild.
But no, yeah, I see it that way. I think that so one time, like, I had a family member who was kind of being really harsh with me about the fact that I'm no longer a believer, and like I don't necessarily like flaunt it like, ooh, look at me, I don't believe what you believe. Like, I'm not gonna argue. Like, I think if that makes your life better, go for it. But I'm not gonna change my mind just because you feel I need to. So I had a family member that, like, there was a picture posted online, and somebody was like, oh, look at these beautiful people. It was like me and my sisters. I have 3 sisters and a brother. And that's not including all the adopted like, I'm adopted, so like I have a whole wider family, but
how cool. I love that.
Yeah.
Family, like,
it's
family
big.
is everything. Yeah, I love that.
So this family member was like, oh, look, they like, I don't remember exactly what she said, but it was like, oh, they like look like demon spawn or something really like negative. And like, I had already blocked her at that point, which, like, at this point, like, it doesn't matter. I've forgiven the whole situation because I'm not going to hold on to that. And, like...
But I'm sure you were really hurt to hear that.
At the time, yeah, I was really hurt because it's like, I'm your blood. And just because I don't fully agree with you doesn't mean I should be outcast or, like, disowned.
Or even hide your authenticity for the pleasure of others, for the acceptance of others. That's...
Right. I'm not going to do that anymore. I did that for a lot of my life, and just I've decided at a certain point, no more. I'm not doing that.
I feel like when I saw you like in high school too, I just feel like you've always been very true to yourself. At least that's kind of what I've picked up.
As much as I was pretty much allowed to be, because I grew up in a very strict household.
Okay.
From when I was 10 till I was like 18.
Wow. Really? I would have never guessed that.
Yeah.
So, like, how was that for you when you started being true to yourself and expressing that? What was that like at home?
I would say, so, like, throughout my life, there's been several, like, aha moments of, like, self-realization and actualization to where I, like, tapped into something that felt, like, very core to me. And... in doing so, like, that had happened several times throughout my life, but when I was younger, it was like, it was very suppressed because of the situations I'd grown up in and the experiences I had had, because it was constantly like these life struggles that were happening clouded my ability to really cultivate that feeling or that connection I was making.
So you had like a block there.
I had a lot of blocks, and still come to challenges to this day where we're fighting blocks.
I mean, it's great that you can acknowledge that too. I think that's a huge part of attaining that higher self, because I think it fluctuates. It's like we get past one goal and then we just hit something else. But it's about knowing that we always have more to work on.
Yeah, and it's just, so when I was younger, so when I was born, let's say, like, I'll just go through a quick summary of what led through my youth.
Yeah.
Because my youth was very different from my adulthood so far. Growing up, so I never met my actual biological dad. But he, from what I knew, was satanic, but I don't know if it was the same as Satanism. I don't know exactly what it was, but he was into like demons and weird witchcraft and stuff. So it wasn't necessarily
Your biological father.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But so here's the thing, is he was into like astral projection and lucid dreaming and these things that I'm into, and I've always been interested in the occult, but he was on like meth and like other things like that. So
he was kind of like, this is what I love to say when people are lost like that. They've had their awakening, but they're not handling it the right ways.
No.
So it kind of clashes with the psyche.
Right.
And then honestly, that's kind of what creates the whole misconception of spirituality and expanded thought, because people associate that with, an addict that they know, or someone with a mental illness that was using, whether it's drugs or alcohol. And that's another thing that I really want to clear, is that just because those people have fallen into that doesn't mean that their belief system is wrong. I believe that when there is, mental illness associated with using, I really feel that they have a form of being hyper aware of other realms, other dimensions, and it gets misconstrued.
I think that's possible in some cases.
Okay. I mean, I also have never experienced it close to home too.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, but that's a good perspective, because I do agree that there are people like that out there. Mm-hmm. But there are also a lot of people who are just trying to cope with life and trying to find some sort of either escape or peace or something that will bring them out of the pain of whatever they're existing in that moment. And that's why a lot of homeless people get addicted to drugs and stuff. Yeah. And it's not necessarily like, when people see homeless people, they almost don't see a person. They just see like, oh great, like here's this guy gonna ask me for $1. But like, sometimes I give him money, sometimes I don't. And that's just because I go off of my intuition of like, is this guy gonna go use drugs or not? And even if you're right or wrong, the fact is, you did a good deed, and what they do with that good deed is up to them.
Exactly. That's on them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that.
And so with growing up, so I never met my dad because he was into meth, and he had, probably 14 children with like 5 or 6 women.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, he was a little slut.
You were not kidding when you said you have a lot of siblings.
Oh, those siblings, I haven't met a single one of those ones.
Not a single one?
Not a single one.
Oh my goodness.
I've done a little research online, and some of them are like in their 50s. He was an old guy. He'd be in his 70s right now if he was alive. Yeah. So,
oh my gosh.
So with that, and then coupled with like my mom, who, growing up when I was really young, and before me, I'm the youngest of 5. So like she was going to abort me, and she said God told her not to. I don't know the exact story, but it was just like, he's special, don't do this. And so she didn't. And I was, 10 pounds almost. I was like 9.5 pounds. I was a big boy.
Your mom was regretting it in that one moment.
C-section
that one
because,
moment of pushing it
I
out.
was not going to make it. You're like, no, thank you. Send it back.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like, at that point she had already been into drugs and stuff. And I'm not saying anything negative about her. It's just these are the facts. And she grew up, she had gotten mental illness at an earlier age. And like, I don't know all the stories exactly, but from what I've been told, she ran away at like 14, 15 and like ran away with like biker gangs and like went and traveled the US, did drugs and all this kind of crazy adventurous stuff, which looking at it, it's like I've done crazy and adventurous stuff, but there's a point where like if you continue to do that, it can have the opposite effect on you.
I mean, yeah, if that becomes your lifestyle and not just like a vacation every once in a while, that's a problem. And that energy too, that constant excitement will support that mental illness, if you will, because again, like you said previously, they're just trying to cope, and that's probably the only way that she knew how.
Right.
It goes back to, you know, our parents' childhood too, and what they experienced, and like we can't possibly know, you know, we weren't even around. So that compassion there to acknowledge that is so important for our own growth. I feel like, like I've experienced a lot of wrongdoing from some family members of mine, and you know, there's been information, I'm sure, within the family that's been completely, you know, misconstrued and manipulated, and all that you can do is just be your best self, you know.
It's true.
Regardless, and love those family members anyway.
Yeah.
You know, I'm speaking personally in terms of my own mother too. I
Right.
love her to death because I wouldn't be here without her.
Totally.
But boundaries are important.
Boundaries are key. And
Absolutely.
With my mom, you know, so now I talk to her sometimes. I don't always talk to her. It's sometimes difficult, just because it sends me back into remembering a lot of things that went down when I did move back in with her when I was like 6, I think. So
who were you living with before?
So I lived with her until I was like 1-ish, and then like I had been taken away with my sister Janet at the time because of, I believe, her drug use. I'm pretty sure that's the story.
Okay.
And so when we were taken away, we had been put through the foster system.
Okay.
And we had lived in different homes and stuff. I was too young to remember. Okay. Like, you know, I do, like, my first memory was like I was 1 month old, but then after that it wasn't until I was like 3.
Your memories?
My first memory, yeah.
A month old.
I'm pretty sure, because I was on an airplane, and I remember a lady going goo goo gaga, and then I thought I was 11 months old, but I was 1 month old when my great grandfather passed, and we had gone on a plane to go to his funeral. And I had no idea that was like my first memory for years, until like I was like, oh yeah, I remember like this happening, you know.
That is amazing how the brain works, right?
It's a strange contraption.
Side note, I don't remember what age I was. I know I was an infant because I was in a crib. I woke up from my nap. Really? I saw that my bottle was empty. My dad was on the bed watching. Yeah, I swear my dad was watching Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I'm not kidding.
That's so great.
I feel like I remember the music.
That's a good memory.
Yeah. And I threw my bottle at him like, more milk.
More milk from the start.
I have that memory, and it's like, how wild is that?
It's super wild.
It's very special.
Yeah.
So what about when you were 6? What was that memory?
So when I moved back in with my mom, we, you know, she had been sober for a while, and that's why I was giving back to her. So kind of backtrack a little. When I was 3, I had been through foster homes, and my grandfather finally was like, let's take them in. And he was, you know, he was all welcoming and most loving person in my life at that time. And so he brought us in, and we lived there for 3 years. And after that, that's when I went back to my mom, and I made the decision. They asked me, and I was like, because I called them mom and dad. I called my grandparents mom and dad. They adopted 2 of my sisters, so that's, you know, they were on that track, but I had made the decision go back to mom because she was like 2 or 3 years clean. And so we went back to her, and it was, at first it was really awesome because she was, you know, sober, and she wanted to go camping. She was into old movies, good music, and like
involved.
She was involved, and she was goofy, and she had this laugh like, and like, but I kind of have that laugh sometimes too, and it's just some of the best years as a kid were definitely when I was living with her.
It's great.
And then as time went on, you know, like, you know, boyfriends would come in, and these boyfriends would influence her to use again. And just who she was as a mom became less and less of a mom. And it was, she would choose this person or this drug over me. And it was to a point where I had seen things that no kid should ever see. I had been through things that no kid should be through. Not necessarily with her, but in situations that could have been avoided had she been present.
Absolutely.
You know?
I'm so sorry.
Well,
it's not fair. You know, we go through things that we don't deserve, but for whatever reason that it happened, you persevered through it, and that's molded you into who you are right now.
Exactly. And that's why at a younger age I was mad about it. I was like, man, why, what the hell? Like, you know, more just like, why does it have to be this way? And as I've gotten older, a lot of my negative and positive experiences have shaped an outlook for me where I just realize I needed that to gain certain tools to be able to help myself elevate and perhaps, if possible, help others elevate too.
Absolutely.
You know?
I definitely agree. I think that that's why you're here. I think that that's why I'm here. And I'm not saying just here in this room. I think that there is a higher purpose for people like us who have been through shit. You know, I've been through some shit myself.
You know.
I too was raised by my grandparents. I don't think that my mom was well enough, perhaps, at the time to take care of me.
Right.
My dad was living there too, but, you know, they were young. They were so young when they had me. So,
that's a big factor.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I don't know who I would be without my grandparents, but at a certain age of 9, when I did have to go live with my mom and, you know, in my early adult years, I had so much like anger towards her because
I hear that.
I just always I would ask myself, like, who would I have been if she would have just let me stay with my grandparents, like, and I didn't have to go through everything that I went through, you know, and all the behavioral stuff. I mean, like, teachers, even my own family would like talk down at me, you know, like, what's wrong with you? And like, they had no idea. How can you explain, like, my mom is not exactly being nice to me at home, you know? How can you say that?
You don't even know yourself at that age.
Thank you. You don't even realize it. You can't perceive it.
Yeah. I don't remember a lot about you from high school, but I remember seeing you, and like when you're in high school you make like certain, I wouldn't necessarily call it judgments, but certain like thoughts on certain people.
Of course. Absolutely.
And like, you know, at the time I was like, she smokes weed for sure. Which I don't judge. Yeah. But like back in the day when we were in high school, like if you went to class stoned, you know, like you were that fucking kid, you know.
Totally.
Excuse my language.
No, please.
All right.
Fucking cuss.
Okay, all right. Cool. So I do that sometimes. Yeah. It's an expression, you know.
It really is. Sometimes I do it a little bit too much in a day, but shadow work.
Shadow work for sure. But I do remember thinking like you were calloused because of experiences you had. And so you had to put over this, I don't know if you'd call it a shell, an exterior, a hard exterior to just push through and like to make sure you didn't get any more shit than you already were getting. That's the what I got from you back in high school.
I could like cry right now. Thank you for that. That helps me feel very seen. I felt invisible in high school.
Really?
Yeah. You know, it's crazy. Like, looking back, I didn't realize how depressed that I was. I was like taking way too many Benadryls and NyQuils at one time. I was getting into my dad's codeine.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody knew. And like, I didn't even think of why I was doing it. And I would sleep in till like 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon on the weekends. Like, you start to realize, like, with this awakening, like, everything that you went through as a kid that was undealt with, we stored it. Yeah. And as teenagers, we experiment. And that is a very, very narrow, it's like a tightrope that you walk.
Yeah.
Because it really deciphers, you know, who you're going to mold yourself into when you're an adult. It's like, I cannot, like, in my family, in my dad's side of my family that raised me, we don't talk about anything. I was raised to not communicate. Okay, so I didn't. And that is what came of it. You know, I would sneak out in high school. I got caught. My dad took off my door.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. I would get, like, crossfaded.
Oh, yeah, I remember those days.
Oh, my God. It was bad. It was terrible. And it's like, you know, we think it's all just fun, you know, because we're escaping. And the idea of escaping and having that freedom, we think of it so positively when we're young like that, but we don't see how deterring and actually dark it can be for us.
It can. Definitely can. And
absolutely.
Growing up, experimenting like that, you are just trying to find peace.
Yeah, you're trying to find peace at such a young age.
Yeah, and you don't even know that's what you're trying to find.
Exactly.
You're just like, ooh, this seems fun because other people are doing it, and this is what they told me it does. You know, experimenting. I had a lot of friends in high school that were doing, like, ecstasy and stuff like that. I never, like, got into anything or experimented besides weed and drinking until I was, like, in my mid-20s.
I swear.
I was, like, 22.
Thought, like, he probably has ecstasy. I swear. Not that I had even done it, but I was just like, he's doing other shit. He looks too cool.
That's funny. I mean, my friends were all into it. I was too terrified because living at home, my dad being a psychologist, he was also a drug and alcohol counselor and anger management counselor, gang member counselor. And so this is in my adopted family, this is my dad that I'm talking about. And
what a blessing, though, to end up in...
Blessing and curse, I'll say. You know, like, the blessing aspect is it kept me out of trouble to where I didn't develop certain habits and patterns at a young age. But on the curse side of things, I was constantly in trouble. And I was never not in trouble. And so because of that, I, like, was really angry with the world. And, like, I started writing at a young age and doing music. I started playing guitar when I was 10.
So did you pick those things up by yourself?
Yeah. Wow. Completely by myself. And granted, my mom's a piano teacher. She's amazing, and has so many good students. And I never had a lesson, and you know, I'm not saying there's a reason why, but hearing music all the time made me feel like I needed something that made me feel connected to myself, that I was doing something, I was creating, or an extension of me.
What a beautiful way to cope.
Yeah, so
that's cool. That's
playing
cool
music,
that you found that outlet.
I honestly think playing music and writing saved my life several times.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And music, so, like, picking up music, I picked a guitar up when I was, like, 10. And at first it was like, I just, you know, I need something that makes me feel like me. And so I'd, like, learn cover songs and stuff. Like, I started with the national anthem and things like that. And over time, you know, because I was in trouble all the time, I wouldn't be allowed to leave my room or, like, do certain things. So I would sit in my room for 3-4 hours, like, learning songs and playing guitar. And it was great. But I still, because I was always in trouble, I was like, screw it. If I'm always in trouble, I might as well do some bad shit. Right. So I was on probation from when I was, like, 16 till I was, like, 18 because I had stole a computer from school.
What?
And yeah, no, my dumbass did that. I know.
At Rancho?
Not at Rancho. It was actually in middle school. I didn't get caught for, like, 2 years.
Whoa.
So
they did not let it go.
It was not them who caught me. It was my dad. So he turned me in. And granted, at the time I was mad because he was like, you need to go to juvie. You need to, like, learn how to respect people and, like, not steal.
And he thought juvie was the way.
He thought that was the way. And granted, you know, like, the way he parented was based off of his experiences.
Of course.
and what he went through, which he, like, my life growing up was gnarly, but his life growing up, I mean, he was doing, like, home takeovers when he was, like, 12 with his mom in LA, like, with guns and shit. Like, he saw a dead body when he was 5. Like, he had been through shit, had a drug problem, and then devoted his life to, like, helping people get off drugs and trying to, like, help people, you know?
Do you feel like that's why he held such a high expectation for you?
In a way, and I think also, you know, so he wanted to prevent that because he knew the family I had come from. He'd known, like, my mom and my dad were both drug addicts, and he knew I had tendencies to lean towards that. But pushing so hard in the other direction, it doesn't always work out that way where you're like, oh, I'm going to prevent them from doing this. If anything, like, I definitely waited, but I did experiment with a lot of different kinds of drugs at different points in my life.
Okay.
You know, and I'm not saying that I'm, like, necessarily proud of that, but, like, you know, certain things like psychedelics really helped me, and then things like stimulants really put me in, like, this weird loop repeat cycle of basically just fucking my body up and my mind up. Is not good for my mental health.
Wow.
You know?
What kind of stimulants?
Just cocaine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just.
Well, just I
go.
mean, just.
Everyone does it. Just go.
No.
No, I mean, get it. No,
it's
I
actually
get it.
very common these days. But
it is, and that's scary.
It is, especially because I've had several friends die from fentanyl overdoses.
Thank goodness.
And all of it was with cocaine laced with fentanyl.
Wow.
So in the last 3 years, I've probably had over 15 friends die. And like, one was recently in the last, like, month and a half. I just went to his memorial. My friend Will, we call him Squilliam. And then I could go on with the names, but it's one of those things where, like, it makes you question things, and you're like, why am I doing this? And what's drawing me towards this, when in reality, these are the kinds of things that happen. Mm-hmm. People die, and people ruin their lives, and I'm trying to better mine because I've already had a hard enough life growing up, and I
feel that
I want to have a nice life.
Exactly.
I think we all do, right?
Yeah, that's basically all we're doing. We all just want to have a nice life, but some of us are just living it a little too fast.
True.
And before you know it, you just don't. It's too late. You don't know. You don't realize.
Yeah, and it's. In my opinion, it's good to understand that there are altered states of understanding and existing, and your perception isn't always absolute, you know?
Absolutely.
But to say, like, that people should just go wild free with it, I don't think it should be criminalized. I think it should be an education system.
Oh, I like that.
So, like, instead of throwing people in jail for doing drugs, educate them and tell them, like, this is what you're doing to yourself.
Seminars.
This is what's happening to your family. Mm-hmm. This, and that. Mm-hmm. You know, because in reality, that might, like, touch something in them that's been numbed. Mm-hmm. That uncover that part of themselves that needs to be brought out, that needs to be connected to, that they've just disconnected and created this barrier.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, sometimes you gotta speak real. You know, the facts are, like, certain drugs put holes in your brain.
Absolutely.
You know?
I actually know somebody who's in Vegas right now for EDC, and it slipped out of his mouth, and he mentioned something about cocaine, and he had previously had a coke problem. And to hear that again, I'm just like, what are you doing? You know? And yeah, this person, like, has no education in science, in, like, biology, you know, what it does for the brain. And shoot, I took one biology class. I also don't know a lot, but I learned a segment on what cocaine does for the brain. And I sat with this person. I'm like, look, this is what you're doing to yourself. Like, you think that you're stimulating your brain, but it's actually dead. Your brain, it's brain dead. All the activity of the brain was, like, orange and red when you're sober.
Right.
And on cocaine, it showed a scan, and there was so much black. You are not thinking.
You're not thinking.
You're just functioning.
You're functioning. So the way that I've known and researched, and also in my experience, is that it stimulates parts of your spinal cord that it connects certain things quicker. That's why people get all hyper and uppity and just like talking about this and that. They're like ADD.
Right.
If you're ADD, then it does the opposite, but that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, I have ADD. It's ridiculous. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I told you. It's like
Right.
maybe that's why
That's
stay
why
away
they
from it all.
prescribe Adderall to people with ADD, because it actually slows them down. It's the opposite effect, but that's a whole other thing.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. We can, yeah.
But with doing that, that's the thing is so what I think it does is it brings your brain down into like what I call like a reptilian brain. That's an actual name that's it's been called. So there's like different levels of conscious thinking, and your reptilian brain is like the smaller inner part of your brain that connects more to survival,
Yes,
procreation.
I remember this. It's ringing some bells.
Yeah, so it's procreation, survival, food, living, your like basic core beliefs, that's where that exists, and it puts you in that mode, and that's why people act on impulsive behavior when they're doing said drug, versus when you're meditating and you're activating parts of your brain. It makes you think on a higher expanded level. And that's not to say people who are experimenting with these drugs aren't on a level, because some of them actually know quite a lot about a lot of stuff.
Right. And it helps them retain certain information. I don't know how.
Yeah.
I don't know how it does that, but I've seen it.
Everyone's different.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is like no one's the same. There's no one recipe for everybody. And that's why, to go back to like religion, that's why I'm not like overly religious nowadays, because I've realized even though there's truth to these things, the path is not one path that we all have to walk. It's individual. Unique to you, your experiences on a micro scale, which is like this and that around you, and then the macrocosm of just like the universe and where the stars were when you're born, and like how their energy relates to you. It's really interesting. It's macro and micro. It's both, as above, so below. You know,
love that.
So I mean, the universe works in strange ways, and for us to sit there and try and define it and what's right and wrong is it's natural, but it doesn't mean that we will ever actually know.
Exactly. There's just no way. Do you feel like when you tried psychedelics, do you feel like that helped you connect to that?
It did.
Or
for
how
sure.
did it in what ways did it benefit you?
So real quick, to go into like my first psychedelic experience, I was probably 22 or 23. I was living somewhere in Pozole in Oceanside.
Oh, yeah,
and like I don't care. I get along with gangsters and shit because like it's just respect, you just give respect. Anyway, so I was out there living, and I was like, I'm going to try this, see what it's all about. Like, I had been smoking weed, for years on and off. And so I was like, I just want to know what this is about. And I've read a lot of studies about it. So let me try it. And I tried it with a little chocolate. We went down to this canyon. It was me, my best friend, and one of my other really good friends. So my friend Taylor and Tyler. And when we went down there, I remember when it started kicking in, and like all the plants were coming alive, and it was like a very Alice in Wonderland kind of feeling. And I remember movement, squiggly, and you were like, that thing's alive. Like, that plant is alive. What the heck? Why haven't I realized that before? Like, plants are living, but it was like this realization of like, no, that's actually alive.
Yeah, there is a heartbeat in there somewhere.
Yeah, it's doing something, and whoa. And I remember being weightless, and then like when I started tripping, things started changing, and like I remember watching this graffiti float across this wall that had bullet holes in it. And thinking, I know, there was like a wall randomly down in there, because this used to be like a test site for the military back in the day. It's right by Pozole. And I'm not saying anyone should go down there, because it's not a very safe place.
Not advising this.
Not at all. But yeah, when I was down there, I was walking around with them, and I remember like looking up at the sky, seeing the flower of life, and seeing it in like a grid-like pattern throughout the entire sky, and it was moving like clockwork, almost like in like a machine-like way, whereas like it just was there and it was operating whether we're aware of it or not.
Wow.
And it just seeing that, I was like, there's definitely more to life than what I thought. And
it unlocked something.
It unlocked something, and I was having a great time. My buddy Taylor was, and like we go and we find stairs that lead to nowhere, and we're like, well, that's weird. What the heck, man? Like, why are these stairs going anywhere? You know, because you're tripping, and it makes you very childlike. It gives you that curiosity and wonder.
Yes, I have to agree. Childlike experience.
Yeah. And one of my friends, Tyler, was not having a good time, but we didn't know that. And I just remember we all sat down, and it was like we shrank. We like shrank into, and we're like sitting there, we're like, the forest is huge. Whoa.
I have to tell you right now, I'm seeing like a purple aura over your head. This is crazy. I can't control it. It happens sometimes.
That's wild. I've never been told that before. Thank you.
It's really cool. Anyway, continue.
Gracias.
The forest.
So yeah, we're sitting there, and like I'm like, dude, this is awesome. I'm explaining what I'm seeing and stuff to Taylor, and he's explaining it, and then I look at Tyler, and I remember him being like, yeah, what you guys are experiencing is like 1,000 times but hell. And he took his glasses off, and I remember seeing lines form in his face and just fear fill his face to the point where like he was the one who had done it before, and so he was like the safe one. Me and Taylor, it was our first time, and so we were like, oh crap, like the one who was supposed to be like, I've done this
mess, yeah,
oh crap, he's scared. I was like, we need to go home. And then sometimes when you're tripping, you don't know which direction's which, so I'm like, I think it's that way. It was wild. So we ended up walking, and then there was like a group of people that comes up to us, and like me being on mushrooms, I'm like, hey, how's it going? Like, what's up? Nice to meet you. You know,
you're
just
talking
like
to people.
Yeah, just talking to people. But they like were definitely on some drugs of some sort. And I mean, if you consider mushrooms a drug, I guess I was too. But
sure. I mean,
they were like, natural. This is Roscoe's neighborhood, like, or whatever. I don't know if that's exactly what they said, but it was someone's neighborhood, and they're like, do you know him? And I was like, nope, I don't know. I'm just like innocent and just having fun.
Yeah.
And then they were like, oh, you guys got any like smoke, like some white smoke? And I was like, I don't do that, but you know, like, you guys have a good day. Yeah, they were asking about meth. And so me and my buddies were like, oh, maybe we should leave. Like, so I like shook their hand. I was like, oh, have a good day, you know, like being all nice and stuff.
Yeah. You're like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. I'm gonna smile at you until I can't see you anymore.
We ended up getting home, and then so the rest of the trip was up and down, just experiencing, like, at one point I felt like Jesus and Buddha with like a happy, jolly stomach, and then another point I felt like a cartoon. It's really weird, but when I came back to normality, we were like at, I think, Mary's Diner, and I was eating food, and like Rihanna or somebody was playing on the radio, and I just remember thinking, I'm like, this is not like genuine real music. Not to say she's not talented and she doesn't have good songs, but at the time I was like, this is very robotic, very like created, like orchestrated, like there is a pattern here. Structured.
Absolutely.
And coming back to reality after that, it was like, you know, like with the old Nintendo games, when you take them out and you would blow on them to make them work. Yeah. I felt like someone did that to my brain.
Wow.
So I felt like taking it apart, blowing the dust out, and then I got put back together.
It back in, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So that was my first psychedelic experience, and since then I've done a lot of research on them, and I definitely have abused them when I was younger.
Oh, okay.
But as I got older, I have grown a lot more respect for them, and now I choose wisely.
Okay.
If I'm going to partake in certain things like that.
Absolutely. So you were tripping when you were in high school too?
No.
Okay.
No, I had smoked weed a couple times, but
Okay.
I was terrified to do anything because my dad would find out, and he was strict.
I mean, I feel like that's kind of like healthy. Like, I think like there's some kind of relation to like the brain when it's more matured as an adult versus being so young and trying those things for the first time. I really feel like there is greater benefit when you try it later in life, and that's just me. That's just an idea. I don't really know.
I agree,
it
though.
Just seems right, you know.
I agree because I think at a young age, you're only so aware because you've only experienced so much.
Yeah, and you're not making sense of anything that's happening to you.
No, and not only that, it's so like when you're younger, your first experiences in a lot of things are more impactful upon your life. Mm-hmm. And that's because if you look at it this way, so like if I'm 15 versus if I'm 30, mm-hmm. 1 year of my life is either 1/15th of my life or 1/30th of my life. And so the older you get, the smaller the fraction of a year is. And that's why time seems to go faster as you get older, because it's a smaller fraction of your entire existence in this vessel.
Yeah, you're getting closer to the end.
Yeah, and further from the beginning.
Exactly.
You know?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And then your memory starts to go and you're like, fuck.
Is that just the
take
weed?
some supplements. Yeah, weed. I love that. The CBD oil.
Yeah, it was the CBD. I'm disassociated. So yeah, I had experimented in my early 20s, and then I had gotten more into it, and then I would say when I was like my mid 20s is when I started doing like a daily microdose just to see, and I had like a lot of benefits from it, which were like, you know, if I was doing research and doing that, I retained more of my information, and like later on I realized, and this was through research that I found, that psychedelics actually, so what they do, when you become an adult, you have default neural pathways in your brain.
Okay.
You have certain sets of thought patterns and thinking, and even who you identify yourself as. And as a kid, you don't have those. And when you're on psychedelics, you don't have those.
Right.
So when you're on psychedelics like mushrooms, which, like, to me, those are what, if anyone's going to ever do those, that's what you should do. I'm not saying you should go do that.
Right.
But that's the most natural form I can talk about. Mm-hmm. And so upon doing that, it shuts off that default neural pathway, and it forces your brain to create connections between two different pathways that were not connected before.
Wow.
So that's why it allows you to expand your viewpoint. So when you come back to normal, you have the original one, but you have this new one too.
The other one. Whoa.
Yeah.
And I guess that's kind of why, like, we look at different perspectives of things more often than, you know, maybe someone who has never tried it.
Yeah. And I'm not saying they're for everybody, because there are definitely people, you know, I actually, that same friend who I first tripped with, he had mixed it with some other, I think it was like an experimental. And
mixing is scary.
Mixing is scary. Not only that, but like experimentals are dangerous because there isn't any research on them, and they aren't always consistent in their reaction with people. Okay. So he mixed them, and he he turned himself into psychosis for about 8 months.
Oh my God.
So he was literally wandering the streets of San Diego barefoot, feet bleeding, like earphone lodged in ear. Like, he was sending me videos all the time of crazy shit where he was like, he would talk to the police and they'd be like, "Are you okay, buddy?" And he's like, "Fuck you, Illuminati bitch, you're here to hack my brain." Like, that kind of shit. Where it was like literally like he was sending that to me and a group of like a lot of people.
See, that there is a big difference between that and this. That's
why I'm not saying that psychedelics necessarily did that to him. I think it was the combination of combining things that you don't know the results of what those things do.
Absolutely.
So education, that goes back to what I said earlier about being educated on what these things do. So like dance safe. So I've been to many festivals and stuff like that. I've played some festivals and things like that where there's a group called Dance Safe who like, it's a safe group where literally they have cards laid out that explain what every single possible drug does.
What?
And its effect on your body, its effect on your mind, the experience, everything like that.
Wow.
And it's not encouraging it, which is what like a lot of people might think. It's educating people, and like they also provide a safe testing space to where like if you have something, people are going to do it regardless.
Exactly. And I feel like that's why it's so safe that they have that.
Yeah.
Because like you said, people make that choice regardless. So like you're either going to have it there and offer that, or you're not, and you're going to risk, you know, something happening to someone.
Yeah.
I mean, that could honestly help save a life.
It's the difference between knowing and not knowing. And like, unless you have like a pocket with a syringe full of Narcan, you don't know if your buddy's going to go into an overdose. And not to say like that going to festivals is just like drug frenzy zone, but like people go to those and they feel free and they want to experiment outside.
Like the place to do it.
Yeah, if you're going to do it, that's probably where you're going to do it. Absolutely. And in my experience, yeah. So having that safe space to where they can test their stuff and know what's in it could have literally like saved certain friends of mine that have passed from overdoses of having fentanyl, which is, it's just mind blowing to me that because it's so criminalized and stigmatized, it creates this fear of like opening up about it to where people hide their drug habits. And I'm not saying that
secrecy is so toxic.
It's toxic to themselves and those around them, but I understand it because I've been in it before to where I've hidden habits and things from people because you fear being exposed to where you're going to have to reconcile and face that demon.
So true.
But
so true.
Once you do, you're like, that was tough as fuck, but I needed to do that.
Right? Damn, I feel that. I feel that like deep in me. Like, oh, I'm still on camera. Wow, that's beautiful. So do you feel like that also helped with your music?
Oh, it heavily influenced my music and still heavily influences my music.
That's great. What's the name of your band again?
Okay, so for a while I was doing Luxifer, which was just, you know, my original thought because I didn't have a band. I was just doing my music, and like I had been in bands throughout the years and stuff, but I had always felt like I was composing and like everybody else was just kind of playing with me. And that's not to say they weren't a valuable part of that or they didn't create too. But in my experience with that, over time I kind of gave up on finding band members. So I was like, all right, so I'm Lux, so I'm going to go Luxifer, which is like this kind of combination between light and dark, duality, and experiencing like my idea for it was like I'd be wearing like black and red leather, and halfway through my set I'd come out with like white and red leather, and like it's like very David Bowie in my head.
I love David Bowie.
I love David Bowie.
I love that
too.
you just said that. Dude,
he's one of my favorites.
Now I'm gonna go see one of your shows. Inevitably, I have to, and you better do it.
Yeah, one of these days I might, you know.
Yeah.
So that was that for a while, and I was like convinced I was gonna have to record drums, guitar, bass, because I play multiple instruments. So I was convinced I was gonna have to be the entire band, and
one man band,
and you know, and then like over time I found different people, like my bassist Mario, so I play with him on and off throughout the years for about 6 years now, and he's one of those people like we can just vibe off each other, and like he could play anything and I'll vibe to it. And then now he plays bass for me, so he like has learned my songs, but I still give him the freedom, like do whatever you're gonna do as long as it works with what I'm doing,
flows,
you know. And then we've recently found a drummer, and his name is Nick. He's amazing, and he like gets right into place, like no problem. So people have no idea we practice. So we played a couple like open mics just for fun, shits and gigs.
Yeah.
And when we played, people like we'll have like 10 people come up to me, is like, that was amazing. You guys like sound like XYZ, and like this combination of this and that, and like in my head, I'm like, that was the first time we played that.
You're like,
I'm not going to tell them because,
Yeah.
Okay.
You're like turning around. You're like, yes.
Good job. I convinced them. But that leads all up to recently I was talking with them and I was like, Luxifer is kind of like my own idea of my branding. But as far as this group goes, like, what do we want to do? Do we want to change the name? And we decided we do. So now, as of a couple days ago, we decided we are the Sly Spies in Disguise.
Sly Spies in Disguise. That's so fun to say.
Hey, no.
Sly Spies in Disguise.
Yeah. I feel like
so
it just rolls off the tongue in a fun way where you're like, ha, like,
it totally
I like
does.
to say, oh, who are we going to go see? Sly Spies in Disguise. Like.
I love that.
So, yeah, with our music, we do a lot of, like, psychedelic funk and a little bit of, like, dark blues with, some Hungarian, Egyptian aspects. Yeah, we get into like some kind of weird Middle Eastern stuff.
Love that.
So we're kind of all over the place, but we have a sound, and like it's really hard to put it in a genre or put it in a box. But really, it's different.
We can't put you in a box, Lux.
I wouldn't fit. My hair would be popping out the corners and stuff.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely plan on going to see one of your shows, wherever they may be. I'm going to keep a lookout because I am a fan and I'm a follower.
Yeah.
You're amazing.
Thank
you for your authenticity.
Appreciate
you for being
it.
true to yourself. Just thank you for being here.
Yeah.
This is a great energy.
I appreciate the space.
How can our listeners find you?
So if you look me up on Instagram, you can find me at Luxifer, so LUXIFUR_. I recently went private more just because I had a lot of weird accounts following me that I feel like were like robotic weird accounts and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, they're all selling weird drugs online and I don't want that on my following.
It's time to move on.
It's time to move on. So I went from a music business page to like a private page. But you can find me there and usually I'll add people and stuff. But we are going to make a branding page for Sly Spies in Disguise as well. So, but yeah, that's where people can find us. There's a couple music videos on there. I haven't really shared a ton of music because we're trying to get it all recorded and all put together before we kind of just put it out there. Because once it's out there, you can't take it back.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's that is blissful if you think about it. Once you release it, that's bliss. It's like, it's done.
So I got to do it at the right time, because if I release it too early, then people will get their preconceived notions and whether it's professional or not, or there's all these aspects that come into releasing something
so true
too soon.
You hold it. You gotta keep them excited.
Keep them excited, and like I do really appreciate you having me here and talking to me. My story goes much deeper than what I even presented to you.
Exactly.
But that's everybody.
Which means you just gotta come back.
I do gotta come back. Yeah, for sure.
So I'm going to attach those links of Lux and how you can find them into the description box below. And you got a show to catch, buddy. So
thank you for being with me today.
All right.
If you felt this in your heart and your soul and your center, then please subscribe for more soulful messages. And most importantly, be somebody's angel today and share this episode. Until next time, Angelians, peace and love.